Hi, welcome to the Live Your Dream Podcast, episode 17. When are you too old to pursue your dreams? I'm your host, Selena Lee. I was cleaning my room a few days ago and found my journal from last year where I had written an entry about starting a podcast. I had written down that I was going to launch my podcast by my birthday, which is June 27. Now you know my birthday. I'm usually the most motivated when I give myself a deadline. So I had written down, I'm going to launch my podcast by my birthday and what I needed to do to make sure that happens, including figuring out what equipment to buy, learning how to upload my podcast onto iTunes and Google Play, and actually recording my very first episode. And at the time, all of these seemed really intimidating. And fast forward 8 months later, we are now on episode 17. And I think last time I checked, I had listeners from over 66 countries, so probably more by now. So thank you to all of you for listening. I really, really mean this from the bottom of my heart because I really couldn't be where I am without your support. So there's a lot that goes behind the scene in producing the podcast. And I think in the last several weeks, I was so focused on actually just doing the work and kind of had forgotten why I was doing it. And seeing this note reminded me that I started this podcast with a goal to inspire you to pursue your dreams. And it was a reminder that never forget why you're doing something and never forget that how far you've come in your journey and how much progress you've made. And it was a reminder to myself. So I wanted to share this story with you before I started the show today. Usually when I'm speaking, I do it in front of a live audience, and I'm still actually not really used to talking by myself, doing my podcast. And yes, it's still a little bit awkward to be listening to my own voice, but I know you're listening because I get the stats on my download. So I know you're out there, and I would really, really love to hear from you. It's weird that I'm just talking by myself and somehow there are people from all over the world listening to my show, but I don't know who you are and I don't know where you are and I don't know what you're thinking about the show. So I would love to hear from you. If you have any questions, please send me a message on my website, selenalee.co/episode 17, or you can just open up today's show notes on your podcast app and send me a message there. This show is really a labor of love, and there's a lot of work that goes into producing each episode. So if you got any value from listening to any of my episodes, I would really, really appreciate it if you can just tell one friend about the show and share with him or her. And that would really, really mean so much to me. And while you're at it, if you can also write me a review on iTunes, just the few minutes that you take to do that would mean the world of a difference because I've heard that people usually listen to podcasts after it was recommended to them. So that would really, really help me to spread the word and get discovered by new listeners. So thank you so, so much. So I often hear people say, oh, I'm too old to pursue my dreams. If it was, 10 years ago, maybe I would have done it. If I was 5 years younger or 10 years younger, I would learn this or try that. But is there really an age limit to when we can try or learn new things or pursue our dreams? When are you too old to pursue your dreams? And that's what we're going to talk about today. So I want to share with you a story that is very, very intimate and dear to my heart, which is a story about my grandmother, who is definitely one of the biggest and the greatest inspirations of my life. This is my maternal grandmother, and all my other grandparents had already passed away by the time I was born. So my grandmother was very, very special to me. I was really close to her when I grew up. She was born in the worst time in the Korean history. She grew up during the Japanese occupation era and lived through the Korean War. And back then, it wasn't common to educate women. So a lot of women during her time didn't go to school and didn't even know how to read or write. But my great grandparents, her parents, had the foresight and believed that girls should be educated too. So my grandmother did go to school, and she was actually a really great writer. She would often write me letters when I was growing up and would always emphasize the importance of education. She would say, you should take full advantage of the opportunity you have now to study, because that opportunity won't always be there and it's not something everybody has. So when I do have the time, I should really devote myself to do the best that I can in school. And she was also always very encouraging and said that I can really achieve anything I put my mind to. And when I was in elementary school, at the end of each semester, we would get graded on different subjects, and whoever was in the top percentile would get an award. And they printed the award certificates on a computer. So if I got the awards in all these subjects, they would be all printed together. And whenever I brought home these awards, my grandmother got so excited, and she would call these awards strings of candy. Yeah, cute, right? And I think this is what really drove me to work hard. Even when I was so tired and wanted to go to bed, I would wash my face in cold water and try to stay awake to study, because I really wanted to do well in school so I can bring these strings of candy to my grandma and make her happy. I loved her so much, and there was nothing like seeing her smile and making her proud. I used to also save my allowances and buy her a gift, and whatever little things I could afford with the very small allowance that I had as a kid. And I remember being so happy when I was picking out a gift for her. My grandma didn't really have a lot of material things, but she loved to share with others whatever she did have. I remember when we had a guest, she was always so busy trying to give them the best food or the best thing that she had. And whenever she happened to get something nice, she wouldn't use it herself, but she'd always save it. And as a kid, I couldn't really understand why she wouldn't use the good things she got, because she didn't have that much to begin with, right? So I would ask her, Grandma, why aren't you using that? What are you saving that for? And she would smile and say, I want to share with others. And she looked the happiest when she did. So I've learned from my grandma that I should always share the blessings I have in my own life. She's also the one who taught me that we are never too old to pursue our dreams. She was 80 years old when she started taking pottery lessons. It's something that she was always interested in, and one day she just started learning it. She lived very humbly and didn't really own much things, but I remember every morning she would get dressed in some of the best clothes that she had, and my parents took turns driving her to her class where we lived in Seoul, Korea at the time. And people would say things like, wow, Grandma, it's so amazing. I can't believe that you're starting to learn something new at your age. But I was only 10 years old at the time, and I didn't really have a concept of how old she really was, what being an 80-year-old meant, and what was considered normal or not normal or unexpected for her age. I remember thinking it was strange that people were so surprised to see her learning something new just because she was 80 years old. What did age have anything to do with learning something new? I thought at the time, because I was just too young to understand it. My grandma was certainly a proof that age is just a number. She really could beat any young students with her dedication and the passion she had for her work. I would ask her when she came from her class, Grandma, how was your class? What did you learn today? And she would smile and tell me all the things she learned in her class. And one day I got curious and I asked her, how old is your teacher? And she said, I'm not sure, but I think he may be in his 40s. And I was like, wow, you have a teacher that's so much younger than you? And as a 10-year-old, all the teachers were much older than me, obviously. And I thought having a teacher who was almost half your age seemed really strange, but also pretty cool and so shocking all at the same time. She'd say, it doesn't matter what the teacher's age is. Anybody who teaches you anything is 스승님, which is an honorific way to refer to a teacher in Korean. And you need to pay the utmost respect to him or her. And she said when she was growing up, her parents told her to not even step on the shadow of her teacher. Kind of crazy, right? That is how much respect you need to show for your teacher, she said. And one day I went to, with my grandma to her class, and I was so proud to see a lot of her works in progress, and was also very surprised to see how many pieces were thrown out before she finally created one she was really happy with. And just like anyone who was serious about his or her work, my grandma definitely had a high standard, and she was so dedicated in creating the best work she could. So she was a true artist. During her last few years, dementia had taken over her body, but it definitely did not kill her spirit and her desire to learn new things and take on a new challenge. My sister and I wanted to entertain her, show her a good time, so we would ask her, Grandma, what do you want to do? What do you want to do? And we expected answers like, oh, I want to go walk in the park or go see flowers or something like that. But instead she said, I want to start a business. And we were so shocked by this unexpected response. And she also said, oh, and if I was just 5 years younger, I would be crazy if I didn't get my driver's license. And when she passed away at 90 years age, Grandma left with us with many of her masterpieces of her work that serve as a reminder to me that you are never too old and it is never too late to pursue your dreams, learn something new, or take on a new challenge. So I want to ask you, when are you too old to pursue your dreams? And my answer to that is never. I had read a long time ago that one of the biggest regrets people have before dying is that they did not have the courage to pursue their dreams. Most people had not honored even half of their dreams, and they had to die knowing that it was due to choices that they had made or not made. So it is up to you whether you're going to be one of those people who regret on your deathbed, or you're going to be one of those people who reflect on your younger years and proud that you at least had the courage to go after your dreams. Even though my grandma was born and lived through the worst times in Korean history, she did what she could do in her situations and circumstances to make the best out of the life that was given to her. And of course, she was lucky to have been educated, but which is something not a lot of women in her time had. But there was serious gender discrimination, serious sexism at the time in Korea. So even though she was really smart, she didn't have a lot of career opportunities. But she didn't let her circumstances or the situation she was in limit her possibilities or her future. Even though she couldn't get the kind of jobs that only men were allowed to have, she started multiple businesses. She was a leader in her community, and she helped so many people around her. And people often ask me what drives me to do the work that I do. And I think about my grandma. What would she have done if she was lucky enough to be born in my time? Thinking about her and the limited opportunities she had and what she did with that, it makes me feel so humbled and so grateful for all the opportunities that I do have. And of course, I have a lot of fears and a lot of doubts whenever I am about to take on a new challenge or try something new. But I know that I have to at least try and do it for my grandmother or many other women who came before me who would have loved to have the kind of opportunities that I have. So I need to at least try for them. And whenever I'm going through a hard time or about to make an important decision or about to take on a new challenge, she would appear in my dreams. And just the other day, she was in my dreams and said, there is no one like you. There is no one like you. And I took that to mean as her saying that I have something unique to share with others. And I need to have the courage to do that, even though I'm scared and I have doubts that so I was so grateful that she showed up in my dreams to encourage me. I have read somewhere that a person dies twice. The first time is when the person takes his or her last breath, and then the second time is when the last time the person's name is mentioned or discussed or talked about. I think that as long as a person is dearly missing someone and the person lives in the other person's heart, I do believe that she's still living, just like my grandma is very, very alive in my heart every day and speaks to me. And I really feel like she continues to do her work through me. I hope my story of my grandma today helped you to remember that you are never too old to pursue your dreams. I have clients and friends who tell me, oh, I want to do this and that, but I'm too old. And I ask them, how old are you? And they say, oh, I'm 30 or 35 or 40. I'm like, come on, give me a break. My grandma was 80 years old when she started learning pottery lessons, and she left many masterpieces by the time she passed at 90. And when I say dream, I don't mean just a career or a job. I do have a client who is in his 60s and just left his industry, which was something that he did for over 30 years of his life, and starting something completely new and different. So it is possible, but it could be a bucket list item. It could be just something you want to experience, something that you want to do. So think about that and remember what that is, and just go after it. And you never know what will come out of it. If you want to see the potteries my grandma made, just open up your podcast app and click on today's show notes, or go to selinale.co/episode 17. That is CELINALEE.co/episode 17. And I'll have a link to my socials there. So my Instagram and Facebook. Hopefully by the time you listen to this episode and check on the show notes, the pictures will be there. But I've asked my mom, who's in Korea, to take the pictures of the potteries that she has in her home. So it may take a day or two. So in the meantime, say hi. Send me a direct message on Instagram or Facebook. And and I love to hear from you. I've also put together a free guide to the 3 steps to finding true career fulfillment, and which you can also download it on my website. And please subscribe on iTunes, Google Podcasts, or wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. And while you're at it, I would really appreciate it if you can please write me a review. The few seconds it takes you to write me a review can make a world of difference in me being able to share my podcast and the stories with many, many more people. And if you can just tell one friend about the podcast, that would mean so much to me. For any questions about my coaching or to reach out to me with any thoughts or questions about my podcast, you can also visit my website at selinale.co. That is CELINALEE.co. And I look forward to hearing from you. So thank you so much. And I'll be back soon with another episode. I hope you have a great week.